Okay, so as far as tools, we're definitely going to want a, this set I picked up is pretty much just for cell phones, but with a tablet, pretty much the same thing. And this was, I think, about $10. You can find them online, especially the little sucker cup comes in handy for iPhones and such. Bunch of assortments of small screwdrivers, which we're going to need for the screws inside, which the tablet here, the Galaxy Tab 3, is actually fairly easy to get apart. And obviously whatever little screwdrivers, and these little plastic pry bars, they have a little lip on them. These come in really handy for getting the screens out, specifically so you don't crack the screen. We're going to need a solder sucker, and specifically this piece here. This is going to be our rework station, so this is the power supply for it, and the heat gun. And if you can tell with the temperature on that, it gets really hot, so we're going to put it up to about 400 to get the charging port off of there. And it has an attachment for a soldering iron. I have my own. I haven't actually used the soldering iron on this before, but we can try it. And then you're also going to need some heat tape for the PCB board, and this is a heat resistant tape, and we're going to wrap this around the PCB board, around all the parts that we are not going to be heating up. And that's actually pretty important, because you can just melt the PCB board and destroy the whole thing, which would be bad. So and also need some solder and some wick for once we get the old charging port out, get the holes cleaned up for that. And we'll go over it. It's a little bit of a detail work, but if you've got the time and the patience, it's really all not that hard. So yeah, we're gonna go over getting this tablet apart. Okay, so for me, due to the temperature of the heat gun, I like to have a just a nice board. Some people have like little ceramic trays that they can actually set the PCB board on. If you want, get them. I've used them, in classes and such, but for this purpose, I find this works just fine. It's just enough to keep the heat off the desk. And the only other tool that I require is coffee. So let's get started on this. So first thing I'm going to do here is grab one of the little pry bars, and we're going to go around all the corners here. Because how the screens are actually kept on is by a little glue strip that's underneath all of these, around all the corners here. So we're going to go ahead, go around this, and peel that up here. Now, I've already gone through and taken this apart, so you might have a little more trouble with this than I am here. But just so you know, as you're going through this, you just want to be really careful. And I also found initially going through this, I took a very small flathead screwdriver, as well as a little razor blade to cut through the glue as I went through this, and it actually made it quite a bit easier because that glue is pretty sticky. So we're just going to go around all the corners here. You especially want to be careful when you get to the corners, just because they do like to stick in there. So I'm trying to give you guys the best view on this. So once I start getting it open, I'll just place a screwdriver in there just to keep it held up, and just keep working around it. And just move it up with it. I'm just going to go ahead and pause this here, and we'll go ahead and pick up once I get the screen out of this, just to save some time here. So give me about 2 minutes here, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we've got the screen popped out. Now, the one thing that you want to really look at as you're popping the screen out, because it's stuck in there, like it really is. So when you're prying these out, as you're going around the corners, the one thing you want to look at, you just want to make sure it's really not bending too much. Now, you are going to have to use some force, and obviously, just so you know, this is a tutorial video. You know, just a disclaimer, you know, you break it, you bought it. This is just how I do it, so just so you know. But as I go around the corners, I always like to keep an eye on it, make sure it's not really bending it. It should be pulling it from the bottom. But you know, I was able to get, you know, one side out just like I did last time, and you just, as you have the one side out, you're just gonna peel the whole piece right out of there. And I'll give you a good look at what the glue strip looks like. And that's just the black line all the way around the outside. That's the glue strip that just holds the screen in. That's all it is. So once we got that out, we can go ahead and set that to the side there. So for the full tutorial, I wanted to show, you know, from start to finish on how to do this. So we're gonna have 4 connectors on this, and I'll show you these that we're gonna pop out here. So the 4 connectors, it's gonna be this flat one here. See if I can get you a better angle on that. Yeah. So it's going to be the flat one here, this one here with the orange ribbon, and this longer one. Now this one just pops right off. One on the far right, just stick your thumbnail underneath it, that one will pop right off. These 3 are a little different. So I'll go ahead and zoom into this so you can see how they come out, because 2 of them are the same and 1 is different. So I'll see if I can't get you a good shot of how those actually come off, because if you break those, I'm gonna be screwed. So let's see if we'll focus here. So we're gonna start with the small ribbon one for the actual battery itself. And what I'll do, I'll just take my little pry tool, and so the orange piece stays. The black piece on the back end is the actual clip for it. So what I'll do, go ahead and just take it, stick it underneath the back side of it, and it'll pop right up. You can see how that just popped right up, and then you can pull the ribbon right out of there. That ribbon's free, and once that's actually free, I'll go ahead and just pop that right back down in place, just so we don't bump it. Now the middle orange one is the same way, the black tab on the back of it, same thing with the pry tool. We'll just pop it up and pull that out of there. This is a pretty firm cable, so I'll just pry it right out. There we go. Same thing, once that one's out, I'll go ahead and just pop that tab right back into place. This one, the orange one pops up. So from the front side of the battery, we'll just same thing, right underneath the little orange clip on the back side this time, and it'll pop up. Same thing, we'll pop that out, take out that ribbon, and we'll put the little tab back in place here, just as to not break them, because once you break those, it really is a pain. Okay, so now that we have all the ribbons undone, we're going to start with the charging port side, and there's 2 little almost like protective pieces that go over it. So we're going to take those out first. We'll start with the 3 screws right here, pulling these out. And what I'll do, all these screws are the same, and there isn't a ton of them, so what I'll do, I'll just take them and set them right in the back tablet cover, just to keep them in place here. Screw. And now the camera is in a little recessed area that holds it in place so it doesn't shake around as you're moving here, and it's going to be right in the center here. So as we actually pull out the PCB board, make sure that when you're pulling this out, because the camera is attached to it right now, that the camera is moving with it and you don't rip that ribbon. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and just set these to the side here. And this is what we're left to work with. I'll see if I can't give you a shot of this. So, the charging port. I'll zoom out a little bit. So the charging port right here is what we're going to be removing. And on the inside of it is where if we can actually see that it's, can't really see it from here, but you can tell just putting a charger into it, it's pretty well bent, so it won't take a charge because of that. So what we're going to do from here, we're going to go ahead and remove the camera and get that off there just for safety reasons so we don't heat that up. And once that's off, we're going to go ahead and tape off all the way around all this. Okay, so we've got everything taped off now. Let's see if I can't show you how this looks. Now, I just taped the whole thing, and I usually do these in the basement on my steel workbench, but doing it up here, I figured filming wise this would be a little better. So I'm doing it on wood. I noticed as I was just toying around with it up here, I just want to see how it will affect it, and obviously it started to char it, so I just put some of the heat tape right over the top of that as well, just to kind of keep down on any hazards here. And then let's see if I can't show you where the actual solder joints are on this. So there's going to be 2 of them. There's 2 right under my thumb there. That side, same on this side. Those 2. And then all those on the back. We're going to have to get heated up so we can pull the full charging port right off. Clean those up and put the new one on. So we'll get started here. The heat gun is set to its max temp that it'll go about 480. So we're going to go ahead and we'll just set it over it maybe 5-10 seconds and it should pop right off here. So you're going to go ahead and hear this thing kick on. As soon as I lift it off the cradle here, it'll turn right on. We're just going to hold this over about 5-10 seconds. It should pop right off here. There we go. She's off. Just like that. Go ahead and turn this right off. There we go. And there's our charging port. It's going to be really hot, obviously, but yeah, the inside of that is completely jacked. So that's how we get the charging port off. So now what we need to do is go through. That's a little warm, not too bad. So now what we need to do, if I can show you here, is go through. Let me zoom out a little bit. Oh, that's alright. What we need to do now is go through and clean all these up. All these connections we need to get nice and clean again. And once those are all clean, we can go ahead and put our new one on. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this, grab some coffee, and we'll go through how to clean these up. Okay, so we're back. I actually had to finish getting ready for work yesterday, so I actually wasn't able to finish this up. But so I'll be wearing a little different set of clothes today. I'm already ready for work, so once I get this done, I'll be heading out. So as we finished up, we've got the old broken charging port off of there. So now we're going to go ahead and get this cleaned up. and get the new one on there. So the one thing that I did forget to mention is flux that we're going to need. This is an electrical flux, which is petroleum based, which is different than like a plumbing flux, because the plumbing flux would actually, over time, it would corrode the PCB board, because that stuff is meant for copper tubing and to clean that off immensely. So, I mean, I'm not saying that you couldn't clean off like a plumbing flux and it would be okay, but I wouldn't recommend it and I won't use it. So, we're gonna go ahead and let's see if our soldering iron is heated up enough here, and we're gonna go ahead and get whatever we can out of here with the solder sucker, and then clean it up. I'll put a little bit of flux in there first, actually, and maybe I'll just take like a toothpick or something and put it on there. Now, you don't really need a great deal. A little bit on there first because we're just going to be taking this off. So let's go ahead and see if we can't get this cleaned up here. Let's see how warm this is. Not sizzling yet. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. It can be a little too warm. And I'll start just by tipping it and pulling off what I can and just wiping it off. It might be a little too hot. Now we can see the flux moving in there. Okay, so go ahead and clean this up and let's see if we can get some of this stuff out of here. I do apologize if this is really loud. I'll go ahead and just kind of turn the volume down within the video. I pulled it right out of there. I'm trying to get this so you guys can see it. That pulled out pretty nicely. Not so much. Let's try a little more just in case. There we go. And you'll see the four corners here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's where the post of the new one is actually going to go into. So we really want to make sure those ones get cleaned out, and then these top ones here we clean off. And we'll go ahead and resolder this back on there. Okay, so we've got most of this cleaned up thus far. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a little more flux on there, and we're going to see what else we can get out of there with our wick. So for the most part, all the big chunks are out. And now we're just going to take our wick, soldering iron, and we'll just put them together. See if we can't get these cleaned up a little more. just rub it back and forth and see if we can pick up anything. Yeah, it's picking it up. So preferably want the four corners to be completely clear, so when we put the new one in, you can just set it right in place. But if need be, we can put it in place and remelt the solder and push it into place. But I would much prefer to have it cleaned all the way out. But the solder that they used on this is proving to be a little bit of a pain in the butt here. Okay, so at this point, I've got everything cleaned up. I got the contacts all cleaned up and through, and I've got the new one seated in here. And so it's just, at this point, it's just seated in, and all we're going to do, let me make sure this is focused in right for you. All we're going to do is go ahead and solder here, the four corners, and then we're going to resolder the contacts on the back side right here near my thumb, each one of those individually. So it's definitely a little bit of detail work, but it's doable. It just takes a little bit of time, that's all. So we're going to go ahead and get this put back together here, and I'll try and keep out of the way of the camera here as best I can. And when we are soldering corners here, we want to make sure that we don't have any big globs of solder. As when we put the housing back over the top of it, if you have any globs or overspill, anything like that, it won't close properly. So you want to make sure that gets cleaned up and isn't too dense right there. Like I said, any spillage and go through afterwards, take our wick to it, and just pull any of the extra stuff right off here. Make sure this is still in focus for you. There you go. We should be able to just clean that up afterwards. And we're going to do the same with this side. Good in there. There we go. And the last one here. Last one actually looked really nice. Yep, last one in there went really good. That's good. Okay. So all we have left now are the contacts on the back, and we'll get this cleaned up. I said, we'll just go ahead and take our solder wick. We're going to go ahead and clean this up. I'm going to go ahead and finish getting this all cleaned up in the back here and see how it looks. Okay, so there we go. I got it all cleaned up and looks pretty good. Doesn't look like there's any large chunks anywhere. And she's in there. So we're going to go ahead and do a test fit. Just going to see how it fits just to make sure before putting it in that it'll actually sit in there properly. Yep, it's in there. That's what we're looking for. It should just sit flushly right with that. So that's good, and we're going to go ahead and get this put back together. Okay, so in regards to putting this back together, first thing we're going to do is go ahead and reinsert the camera here. And it just has a little white line, matches up with those, so you know it's in all the way. We're just going to flip the lock back down there. And there we go. So the camera's back in, and we can go ahead and just place this right back in. Go ahead and just seat that right in place. And then we've got our two brackets that go over the port. Apologize, my hands are in the way here. And there's the first one. And then the second one, this end sticks in the little hole here, sits right over it. And there we go. So now we can start putting the screws back in. Okay, so we've got all the screws in here, and then we just have the 4 little strips that we have to put back in place here. This first one just snaps right back on. A firm little press and you'll feel it go in. The next one we just flip up. Apologize, my hand's probably in the way here. Now all of these have a little line going across them, so you know where they should be seated, so you can tell if they're all the way in or not. There we go. It's back together. We're going to go ahead and we'll just reinsert the top over it. And that's it, and we're done. So I'm going to go ahead, get this pressed together, and we'll be all set. And I figured before we would finish up here, I haven't cleaned up the screen at all, but just so you know that this will actually work, let's go ahead and unplug it. I didn't seat it directly into it yet, just because I always like to double check beforehand. So we'll go ahead, plug it back in. Bada bing, there we go. And we've got a working tablet again. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get this finished, put back together, and we'll get this wrapped up. Okay, so that wraps it up for us. I did have to finish getting ready for work yesterday and leave before I could wrap up the video, but as you can tell here, we're charging, it's working, it's on, and yeah, it's holding charge, everything's good. I don't have the unlock draw pattern for this, or I'll just open it right up. But it looks like we're all set. So other than that, thank you guys for watching, and I just wanted to say thank you, or else I would have just ended the video. So other than that, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will put it in the description, all the tools and stuff that are required for it. So again, my name's Elegant Mess, and thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.